Good evening, everyone. Could I have your attention, please? We'd like to get started at right about 6 o'clock. My name is Chris Scott. I'm the Sun Enterprise editor. And on behalf of the newspaper and my editor, Jim Campanini, the boss of the newsroom, I'd like you to welcome you to Harmony Hall tonight. And I'd like to welcome the viewers at home who are watching on Drake at Access Television. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully we'll be done in time for the Red Sox game. So without further ado, I will just announce a couple of ground rules tonight. We've done many of these debates here at Harmony Hall, several involving the incumbent, Representative Colleen Gary, and we do not do opening statements, but we will give a closing statement to both candidates. Candidates will have about 1 minute to respond to the question, and there will be a 30-second rebuttal time. Normally, my boss keeps track of the time allotments, and he rings his little bell to let the candidates know when they're, quote, bloviating, which is one of his favorite words. So I'll do my best to do the questions and to keep track of the time. And I should mention that Colleen is the Democratic candidate, of course. She's first elected in 1995, and her Republican opponent is another Drake-it, is also from Drake-it. His name is Ray Lazinski. And covering tonight's event is Amaris Castillo, who does a great job for us covering Drake-it and Tingsboro. So without any more bloviating on my part, I guess we'll get right to the questions. I spoke to both candidates beforehand. We're going to give Colleen the first question, and then Ray will be allowed to make the first opening statement. So you guys all set?
Yes.
Okay, so just let me get my timer ready. All right. So the first question to Colleen: what is the advantage for the 36th Middlesex District, which besides Drake-it obviously includes Tingsboro, to elect a Democrat to the state legislature?
Well, I think the most important part is that you're part of leadership in the House. So you, while you may not be part of the leadership team itself, you are on that leadership side. When you're on the minority side, there's fewer people to rally for you and fewer powerful people to push for your agenda. So certainly as a member of the leadership party, I'm able to get more things done in the membership with the support of the membership.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. Ray?
First of all, I'd like to thank the Lowell Sun for hosting tonight and Drake TV for participating.
You're welcome.
And I'd also like to thank my opponent for changing her mind and schedule and having the debate here in Drake-it. All right, thank you. I take a little different tact. We have an issue in this state where we're out of control fiscally. We have a $100 million debt, and we're not getting enough back to the towns in form of local aid, both for schools and roads. We need to move towards a system of two-party government in this state, and I believe that's what's going to bring us back to accountability and common sense leadership up on Beacon Hill. In addition, most of the money that comes back to the state in the form of to the town in the form of local aid and even projects for roads are either done by formula or by Mass Works grants or Mass School Building Associates grant. So I don't think there's going to be much of a fall off in what comes back to the town.
Thank you. Looks like I won't have to use the bell.
Yeah.
Next question, Ray, will go to you. What do you admire most and what do you admire least about your opponent?
I give her a lot of credit for the work she does in the community as far as community service, and I know she's involved with many organizations. I'm not going to say I dislike my opponent. I certainly don't dislike my opponent. I have a bigger issue with doing business as usual up on Beacon Hill. We've had a long time of one-party government, and I don't think it's done the state any favors. And I think it's time we need the balance that two-party government provides, both from a spending perspective and both as from the culture of corruption and scandals that we are plagued with in this state. So, like I said, I don't dislike her. I think we need to move the state in a different direction.
Thank you. Colleen?
So what I admire about Ray is his relationship with his daughter. You can you can see on a day-to-day basis when you see them how much love there is together, and I know that he raised her. So I think that's a wonderful thing. The difficulty I have with Ray is that he claims to run a clean campaign, but allows other people to do the nasty part under the guise of freedom of speech. These people are associated with this campaign. They're constantly running negative things about me. They're ridiculing women in some of these things, and I have them. I don't want to have to bring them out. But, you know, Ray and I met, and he said, I'm going to run a clean campaign. We need civility back in politics. But in reality, the people he's associating himself with and allowing to have his logo on the end of their videos and so forth, it's repulsive for what they're doing. And I think that we need a legislator who's going to stand up for what's right and not just bow down to the people who are supporting him.
Thank you. Ray, I'm sure you want to respond to that.
I do, thank you. First of all, I want to say nobody on my campaign has done anything dirty or negative in any way. And I will say from my campaign, the only time we even mentioned Colleen's name was why she was refusing to debate and Drake it. Now, as far as anybody who supports me, I don't think it's a big reach for the Democratic Republican Town Committee to be supporting me. And I assure you that I speak for no one but myself and the voters of Drake it. And I will just say this, everybody is entitled to their opinion. Excuse me. I won't run for criticism. I won't run from different opinions. And in fact, I'll welcome different opinions and reach out to them to get that.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off there. I think we'll stay on this topic for a minute. Colleen, I'm sure you're referring to some of the town's more notorious social media sites,
Right.
which we've discussed in previous debates. So could you give us a few examples?
Actually, I'd love to. We've got a situation where Ray videotapes outside of the chairman of the Republican Town Committee, his home, and then he turns around and doesn't want to have anything to do with the body shaming event that they put up. You know, he's got his vice chair of the Republican Town Committee who's supporting him, turns around and says about my prior campaign, it was off, then on, then date changed, moderator changed, off again, never scheduled, scheduled again, anytime except that time, now it's on again. Wow, this has been like watching two women go through menopause.
Okay, wrap that up. You're at 30 seconds.
So,
Yep.
you know, silence, allowing people to have freedom of speech, but when they're representing you, and at the end of their little taglines, they're putting you in your campaign and support Ray, then you have to be responsible for it. He's said nothing, he's done nothing to condone those actions.
One more time, Ray.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to say they don't represent me, they support me, and I welcome all supports and on all points of view. I know you've had an issue with people who take an opposite opinion of yours, and I'm referring to the bill that you filed concerning the not having free speech allowed, where anybody who will oppose your opinion or was proven to lie would have to forfeit their campaign funds.
No, it's not
Please let me
freedom of
finish. I
Hold on,
didn't
Colleen, just let him
interrupt
finish
you.
up,
I
then you
didn't
get one
interrupt
last chance.
Right. And that was soundly rejected by all the local newspapers, and including the Lowell Sun. And I'll say that you can quote Jeff Jacoby as there is hell hath no fury like a career politician scorn. So I'm
Okay, Ray, wrap it up.
I'm a big supporter of free speech, and I welcome robust opinions in the political process.
Colleen?
The reality is, if this was done for your daughter, Kim, would you have said something?
No.
You wouldn't say anything about somebody being a bully and body shaming your daughter.
No, I wouldn't have, because this is the political process, and
That's really
Okay,
too sad.
please, I didn't interrupt you, please.
That's, I got it covered.
Yeah. The political process, and especially in this country, is founded on open and robust debate and opinion. Well, there's a whole industry of caricatures of politics.
Okay, wrap it up.
And I think we need to have open discussion.
Okay, one last.
I just have to say that my bill did not say anybody critical couldn't say it. They just couldn't lie. That was it. Truth in advertising. We have truth in advertising and everything else. You can have truth in advertising, and it's a disgrace of what the voters have to deal with, and the people of Drake and Tingsboro are sick of this garbage, and you are not stopping it from happening in this race, so you
Okay.
have to be connected to
I
it.
think we've covered that issue pretty good. Ray, following the debate, if you want to speak with the Sun reporter, Amaris, you can do that. I'd like to move on. We got to cover some territory here,
thank you.
okay? I think the next question goes to Ray, correct? Colleen, did you take, no, this one goes to you, Colleen. Would you support state-sanctioned injection sites?
No, I do not. I know of situations where people have taken opioids and have had to use 4 Narcans. I don't believe that any injection site would be safe. We can't be assured that we could save that person. I think that in a better situation is we get them into treatment and get them help. I think that I support the governor's 72-hour hold if they are overdosing, and bring them into the hospital in 72 hours hold to get them clean and get them into a program.
Thank you. Ray?
I do not support safe injection sites. I think we need to work to break the cycle of addiction. I would support more treatment beds. I would also support the 72-hour hold. I was very disappointed that Speaker DeLeo voted to pull that, I'm sorry, not voted, but pulled it out of the last opioid bill. In addition, I think we need to support intense law enforcement, and including enlisting the ICE or the DEA or any other organization that will help us with this scourge. And I also want to get a feel for where Mass Health is and their supplying of opioids to the citizens of our state.
Thank you. Next question goes to you, Ray. Should state legislators be allowed to vote on their own rate of pay? And if not, how should that pay be regulated?
No, they should not be able to vote on their own pay. And I want to go on record tonight as saying that I will never accept a pay raise if I was elected as a legislator. You know, my opponent voted against but did accept the pay raise. I could not in good conscience accept a pay raise when we have schools in Drake where kids are you know, running around barrels because of leaking roofs, when we don't have enough money coming back in the form of local aid to fix our roads. So the pay raise issue, they should not be able to vote, and I will not accept a pay raise if I'm elected.
Thank you. Colleen, your turn.
Actually, I think Ray is misinformed. The fact of the matter is, our pay goes up or down according to the median family income. It's in the Constitution now. It was passed several years ago. And the only thing that happened was stipends for leadership. I am not a member of leadership. I voted against the vote on that. What did happen is we eliminated all the per diems. People were upset about us getting money to travel back and forth. It was an equalizer for people from Western Mass and people living in Boston having that extra expense. And what we did was we turned around and we added to the office expense that we pay taxes on and everything else, and I accepted that because I lost the per diem that was to go back and forth. But it was not a pay raise. I did not accept a pay raise. It was and the stipends did go up, but I voted no, and I did not receive a stipend.
Thank you. But Colleen, when is the last time, since I've known you when you were first elected in 1995, I can't remember one instance where legislative pay has gone down.
It went down twice.
Okay, I stand
Yeah,
corrected. What years
absolutely,
was
it went down twice. I'm thinking it was Governor Patrick. The governor looks at what the median family income, and he adjusts it. And it was during the difficult times. It may have been around 2009, 2010, when we had the big recession, depression, and it went down twice.
Okay, all right, very good. Next question, Colleen, this goes to you. Do you think the recently signed into law red flag bill by Governor Baker will significantly curtail gun violence?
No, I don't, and I didn't vote for it. I voted against it. I see, as a practicing a lawyer, I see every day in family court the abuses on restraining orders already. I see that this will be another action that will take guns away from people, including police officers in divorce situations. I think that what we tried to amend that bill was to turn around and require treatment for those people who they found were at extreme risk. If it's not a gun, If somebody's really suicidal, it's going to be pills, it's going to be knife, it's going to be a rope, it's going to be driving a car into a building. If they really want to commit suicide, they'll find a way. If they really want to kill other people, they'll find a way. And honestly, you know, they will find a way of getting a gun if they want to kill somebody. So I think this was feel-good legislation, and I think it hurts more than it helps.
Thank you. Ray?
I would not have supported the red flag bill. I don't think it's going to do any good. I think it's an example of feel-good legislation, and I think it's also a symptom of the one-party rule in this state. You know, we need to get tougher on criminals. As far as if someone suspect it was had an issue with a possible domestic violence, that power was already there to do something, to go to the chief of police, and they'll take the guns away right away. There's no chief of police that's going to not respond when someone is threatened with potentially domestic violence. So I would like to see us be working as a state on more serious issues concerning crime, and especially drug dealers, and dealing with the judges than voting for feel-good legislation.
Thank you. I'd like to touch on the 3 ballot questions that will be decided on November 6th. So, Ray, this first question will go to you. How will you vote this November 6th on question 1, which seeks to establish patient assignment limits for registered nurses working in the Commonwealth's hospitals?
I will be voting no on question 1, but I want to say that I think I'm very happy that the discussion has started. Matter of fact, I spent last Saturday night with a couple who was voting yes, because I wanted to hear their perspective. My concerns with question 1, the $25,000 one-size-fits-all fine that's on that question, I think will have a hard effect on smaller hospitals. You know, will an administrator have to decide that I'm going to close a wing down because I'm not going to open myself to a $25,000 fine? I'm concerned about emergency room backups and holding the wall like they do in California because there's because of nurse staffing, they can't move to another wing. And also I'm very concerned if hospitals are forced in 36 days to hire more nurses, where are they going to get those nurses? Are they going to take them from nursing homes who already have a hard time, or treatment centers that already have a short on nurses?
Thank you. Yeah. Colleen?
Yes, I will be voting no as well on question 1. We had tried to negotiate with the nurses, and we started a proposal to have the ICU units have a nurse-patient ratio. That has not come back with a whole lot of input on that, but to turn around and do this on a statewide level, we've got small nursing homes, we've got small hospitals that are going to be at risk, and healthcare will be seriously at risk for whether beds will be available, whether they'll be closing any ambulances going to emergency rooms if they're going to violate that rule. So I think that, and one of the other parts is that you're going to create the fact that nurses are going to get paid more, and you're going to have a difficulty finding nurses schools. Some of the other smaller locations that need the nurses in the schools, well, if they can make much more money going to the hospital, they're going to go to the hospital. So we have a difficulty right now finding a nurse for Dracut. So I think that that's going to happen. You're going to have LPNs and CNAs who are going to be at risk as well because they're not going to be able to afford to pay them.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to question 3, and this is one of the questions that has generated a lot of publicity along with question 1, not so much for question 2. Ray, on question 3, do you support upholding the state law that prohibits discrimination based on gender identity in public places?
Of course I support laws that work against any kind of discrimination, but the question is, do I support the law as it's written?
Will you vote yes or no?
I will be voting no on question 3. I think the law was poorly written in that a woman or a girl should not be afraid on going into a ladies' room because I think the glaring omission from this law was it didn't even exclude convicted sexual offenders from being able to go into the men's room when they choose. Right? And I also, how do you define sincere belief in what is what bathroom you want to choose? I think it needs to go back to the legislature, and I think they need to craft a law that protects both the individuals that were intended to protect in this law and provides for the safety for women and children of our state.
Thank you. Colleen?
I will be voting no on that as well. I think.
Well, you guys agree
Yeah.
more than not.
Yeah. I fought this in the legislature. I fought to close a loophole, and unfortunately was called a bigot and all sorts of nasty names for trying to do so. My first and foremost responsibility is for the safety of children, the safety of women in rest areas, and this was not the way to do it. And I have real concerns about when one person's rights supersede other people's rights. So I have been asking for a way to close that loophole, and we have not been able to find that result yet, but we're not giving up.
All set?
Yep.
Thank you. Ray, you touched on a local issue earlier today, earlier in the debate, and I'd like to touch on a couple of local issues, not so much issues as they relate to the State House. I think oftentimes people in the communities look to their elected leaders, whether they're on the local level or the state level, for a little bit of guidance on some issues. So this next question is for you. Dracut is still third from the bottom according to the state in per pupil spending, including just the districts that are full kindergarten through 12th grade in Massachusetts. Does this need to be addressed, and if so, whose responsibility is it to do so?
Yes, it needs to be addressed, and I think this goes back to the local aid issue. If I'm elected, I'm going to fight for more local aid. I know my opponent's going to say, where does the money come from? Well, how about the scandals that we deal with in this state? The police scandals and the money that's wasted there. How about the money that's spent on illegal immigrants in the state, which I have a study that shows $2 billion spent on illegal immigrants in the state with as far as schools and health care and law enforcement. And I know some people, are going to say, well, that study isn't accurate. Regardless if it's inaccurate, there is some number of dollars that are being spent for illegal immigration that's in this state, and I think that money needs to come back to cities and towns. I think the schools are a joint town effort and state effort, but clearly we need to do better with local aid. The state government has grown $10 billion in the last 10 years. Local aid for general fund has remained flat. For schools, it's increased some, but it's also come with unfunded state mandates, such as SPED education.
Okay, Colleen?
So, first of all, going back to the $2 billion in illegal immigrant costs, after he mentioned at the last debate, I did a little research, and because I had never heard that, Ways and Means had never heard that, and I found out that some of the Republicans, the more extremist Republicans, have been throwing around this Federation for American Immigration Reform study, alleged study, and which quotes the Center for Immigration Studies, both of which were started by John Tanton, an anti-immigrant hate person. They have been called hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center. They are people who believe in white supremacists, and so no one has been able to verify this number. Even the Academy of Arts and Sciences has been looking at that and said that it's not anywhere near that. And that's one of the things that I have to say. I learned after 24 years.
You can go over a few seconds. Go ahead.
After 24 years, you have to check your facts, and you got to check who you're getting the facts from. And unfortunately, you can rely on somebody who's not legitimate, and that's something that you have to learn.
You're not going to let that go, Ray, I imagine?
No. Like I said, no matter whether you accept this study or not, there is money.
Is that the study that you're referring to,
Yes,
Ray, the one
yeah,
that Colleen quoted?
yeah. And whether you accept this study or not, and there is money being spent on illegal immigrants in this state. Whether, like I said, whether it's in schools or for health care, we know that if you look at the state auditor's report, 2,000 licenses were issued to deceased people in the state. Right? That's a method to getting state funds and state support. We have to speak the truth. We can't pretend that there isn't money going to illegal immigrants, and because that's the only way we're going to deal with the issue. Right? And I want to fight to protect the benefits for the legal citizens of the state.
Okay, I gave you a little extra time there. Colleen?
So the fact is that I've been crossing the aisle and working with the Republicans on requiring social security numbers whenever there is a housing unit, or whether there is a welfare application, or WIC, or stamps, or any of those things. The only thing that illegal immigrants can get is emergency Medicaid, which goes mostly, 98% of that is the birth of a child who is being born in America, who's an American citizen. So that's just to clarify that. In regards to education, if you look at what they consider educational mandates, it's everything in the schools. So basically, you want the state to pay everything for the school, and what does the town pay? We've done extremely well with our formula. And
Please wrap it up, okay?
we're at 51% of the foundation is from the state in Drake, and 34%, I believe it is, in Tingsboro. We're not in a point where we're cutting like some of the cities are.
Thank you. Okay, this is another local question, and this issue has been covered extensively in The Sun by my colleague, Amaris Castillo. This is in reference to the upcoming town meeting. There's a warrant article that's submitted by a firefighter that seeks for those town officials who are on active military service. They want to be able to collect their full pay while they are on that service. Currently, the town, I believe, pays the difference, correct me if I'm wrong, between what they get from the military and what they get from the community. So, Colleen, what do you think of that particular warrant article, and is that one that you will support?
You know, I listened to both sides at a hearing, a selectmen's meeting at one point, and they were talking about all of the effects of going on to a deployment. And I talked to the town manager about whether we could actually get them their money up front, so they're always a month ahead to help with the payments for that. I'm still a little bit confused on the other, but you know what? These are the men and women who are serving our communities here, and they're serving the communities overseas, risking their lives, leaving their families. I say we support the firefighters and the police officers and anyone else who is on that type of program, and they're willing to serve us. We need to be there for them.
So I take you're leaning towards supporting
Yes.
that article, but
Yes.
you haven't made up your mind yet.
I haven't seen the actual numbers, but I am leaning towards it.
Okay, thank you. Ray?
I'm the veteran here, a former reservist, a former Guard member, and an active duty member. I don't support the warrant as written. The intent of...
So you do not support the warrant article?
Not as I understand at this point. The current process in the town is that if a reservist or Guard member goes on active duty or goes their weekends, the town will make up any difference between what they would receive as a regular pay versus what they received as going on active duty. So, for example, if the firefighter or the policeman or any town employee makes $1,000 a week, and as going on reserve duty makes $800 a week, the town currently does make them whole to $1,000, and I think that's the way it should be. The problem comes in a little bit with weekends.
Okay, so that was a pretty long wind-up, so what's your position on that warrant article?
No, I think the town is doing what it should be doing now. The town is behaving correctly now in making people whole when they serve for active duty.
Okay, thank you. This next round of questions is what we call the lightning round. Colleen, you're familiar with these and you're laughing. They are designed to maybe bring out a few laughs, so we'll start with Ray on these. Please keep these answers very quick and succinct. If you had the power to take one television show off TV, which television show would it be? And don't tell me you don't watch TV. Everybody
I watch TV. Wheel of Fortune? I don't know.
Oh, Colleen.
If I had to take one show, some of the ones that are
Oh my
Just
goodness, you
two-
people are
It's certainly
pathetic.
not as easy as you would think.
no.
right?
I'm thinking and I know people love it, but the NCIS and how people
Okay.
kill people and
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, good idea.
That wasn't a fun one.
Colleen, should the state abandon daylight savings time and switch to Atlantic Standard Time, or keep the status quo?
I think we keep the status quo.
Okay, thank you. Ray?
I would love to get rid of daylight savings time. I hate when it gets dark earlier. I like it light in the morning. I like to rise with the sun. So
Finally, a little bit of disagreement. Okay,
Yeah.
Ray, in one word, what one quality do you believe is the most important to possess to hold public office?
honesty.
Colleen?
Caring.
Okay. Colleen, what should the voting age be?
I think 18 is a good age.
Okay. Ray?
18's fine.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's move on. I think the next question will start with you, Carleen. How should the state spend its $1 billion plus surplus? The Sun did a big story on this last week.
Right. Well, I think we did decide on the money $10 million going back to Merrimack Valley to help with the, a loan to help with the resources for public safety to housing for the gas fires. We had $40 million for the roads and bridges and local roads and bridges, $10 million for water infrastructure, $10 million for violent crime program for children 17 to 24, 7.5, it was really important, the mental health and behavioral health in public schools, and $240 million to go into the rainy day fund. I think that's vitally important. Having been in the legislature when we hit the bottom, we had a significant rainy day fund that we used completely. So I think the more that we have in there, the better, and it helps us.
So you're happy with how that was dispersed?
Yeah, and it helps us with the rating agencies.
Fair enough. Thank you. Ray?
I would support some going back to the Merrimack Valley to help with that, but I think the rest should have come back to the cities and towns and help make up for the shortcomings of not seeing any increases in general fund local aid for quite some time.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. That's our money, right? We paid in more money. We're experiencing very good economic times, which generated more revenue. I think it should come back to benefit the taxpayers.
Okay, fair enough.
Can I?
Yes,
well,
absolutely, Colleen,
I mean,
yes.
the general local aid was actually an increase of 3.4, which was what the increase in revenue to the Commonwealth was. And in fact, we're sending the money, some $40 million for local roads and bridges and infrastructure, so, as well as schools. So I think that the money is going back. To split it up between all the districts would be a minimal amount going to every district. And, but to say that they haven't had an increase, this governor has made sure of his promise that it would go up, general aid would go up by the amount of revenue increase.
Thank you. Ray, are you all set?
I just want to add, I don't accept the notion that the general fund has gone. I mean, there were many years where it went down, went stagnant or down, and it's falling behind. I can't justify the budget going up $10 billion in 10 years and not seeing more money come back to the local towns for the schools and the roads.
Education has gone up, is the highest amount it's ever been. It's over $4.9 billion. The general aid is $1 billion. We've got millions going in for Chapter 90 for our roads and bridges. We've got $5 million going into Nashua Road and Lakeview Avenue. We've spent millions on Arlington Street. There's certainly not a lack of projects of money coming back to this community. We just got a $2.5 million grant in Drake, which helped Broadway Road. We got a $2.5 million grant in Tingsboro for Flint Corner, and we're still waiting on a determination, and we're believing it's good news coming to us on another Mass Works grant in Tingsboro. So money's coming back.
Okay, Ray, you're all set?
Just one last thing.
Yep.
When I spent a lot of time knocking doors in both towns, and knocking doors.
Oh, yes.
Right, and talking to the voters, and I can tell you the residents of Tingsboro aren't satisfied with the progress on the roads, and many residents in Drake are not satisfied with the progress of schools.
Well, if I could just clarify, they're mostly concerned about Middlesex Road, which they dug up partway for a sewer project. We had Mass Highway going to come in and fix it, but they're going to turn around and tear up the rest of the road, so Mass Highway is going to come in and fix it once both projects are complete.
Okay, Colleen, I'm going to cut you off
Yeah.
because it just so happens that the next question has to deal with infrastructure.
Yep.
And I can attest to this, Amaris can attest to this. When we try to come to Drake and cross a bridge from Lowell at rush hour, it's gridlock. Tonight wasn't too bad. So Ray, this next question is, it's your turn for the first answer. What measures would you propose, specific measures, to relieve traffic gridlock throughout the district on local roads and bridges? And I want specifics.
Okay, we're definitely seeing an increase of traffic in this town. Anybody who tries to get through Lowell, back into Drake and Tingsboro through Lowell, it's very difficult. Roads and bridges have been neglected for quite some time. Look at the Rourke Bridge. How long is that going to be a temporary bridge? So I think we need to make the Rourke Bridge a real bridge. I think I'd also like to see another bridge over the river, maybe in the Tewksbury area, to try to alleviate some of that traffic off of 93. If you ever try to deal with 93, there's and we're going to have to do something with some of the smaller roads as well. If you've ever been going through Drake on going over Marsh Hill, that area, that's like a racetrack now. And they paved the roads, but there's a lot of traffic that goes on there. It's amazing how many cars are going through our town. So I'd like to see the Rourke Bridge.
Go ahead.
I'd like to see the Rourke Bridge become a real bridge. I'd like to see another bridge over the town in Tingsboro and in Lowell, into Drake. And we'd have to widen our roads.
Thank you. Colleen, you have a few extra
Yes.
seconds on that too, okay?
So we have been putting that in. If you think about it, and since I've been elected, we've done $365 million project on Route 3. We've done the Tingsboro Bridge, the temporary bridge, the renovation of the bridge, the infrastructure on the other side of the river, which has done tremendous amount in helping with traffic. Now again, the $2.5 million of Flint Corner. I want to see if we can get an extra lane here on Lakeview Avenue for a right turn only to help the traffic in the morning of the kids going to school. We've just done the Methuen Rotary, which helps a lot of people from this community get through that intersection safer. I think that was about a $60 million project. As I said, we've opened up and widened Arlington Road. We've got the Broadway Road project done now, and we're going to Nashville Road. So we're getting a lot of road work done, and we're not stopping.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. Ray, do I see, do you want to respond?
No.
Okay. Next question, Colleen, this goes to you. What is your view of sanctuary cities?
I'm against sanctuary cities. I think that if they were to come here, then we would have people flocking here. I'm not saying that all immigrants are violent or whatever, but we have seen, and we have seen immigrants who have been terrorists and who have affected the lives of people in this district. And so I would say that sanctuary cities help cover for those people. Sanctuary cities help to cover for those people who are dangerous. It's not just about the nice immigrants that come in here for good things. It includes those people who are dangerous, and I don't think that is a good thing for our community at Commonwealth. I think that we have to rule by law, and I think the federal government needs to get its act together and deal with immigration once and for all.
Thank you. Ray?
I do not support sanctuary cities. I certainly don't support the sanctuary state. And rest assured, there is going to be a strong effort when the legislature resumes for sanctuary state. It almost happened this past year where our state senator tried to tack it on to the budget. So I do not support sanctuary cities or states. There's too many downsides with crime and drug dealers. We saw it in Lawrence with which is pretty much a sanctuary city, and the ICE arrest where 49 illegal immigrants were busted. Not only were they a lot drug dealers, they had credentials to get Mass Health and EBT, and a problem we need to look at. And the other thing I want to say, I hope at some point the questions get a little bit more where we don't agree as opposed to where we agree.
I can't control that, Ray.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Ray, this one goes to you. If the millionaire's proposal came before the state legislature again, would you support it? And if so, why should residents who earn more money pay more taxes?
I would not support the millionaire's tax. I like a flat rate tax. I think that's fair. Millionaires who make more money, if the rate's the same, they're paying more money. And the other thing, we've seen it in other states, such as New Jersey and Connecticut, millionaires are mobile. And if you tax them at a higher rate, they're going to move to another state and possibly take jobs with them. So I would not support the millionaire's tax.
Colleen?
I did not support the millionaire's tax, and I agree with Ray that it's fundamentally unfair to have people pay more and to pay more of what the necessities of our Commonwealth, and they do migrate. If they're millionaires, they probably have a house in Florida, and a house in New Hampshire, and a house in Massachusetts, so let's gonna make our primary residence wherever it's cheaper.
Thank you. Next question to you, Colleen. Colleen, if you're re-elected as a state representative to what, an 11th or 12th term now, I think, will you maintain a full or part-time job if re-elected, or will you strictly serve as just a state representative?
This would be my 13th term. I will continue to do what I do now. I am a full-time state representative. It is not a 24, it's not a 9-to-5 job. I work any of my legal work around the schedule, and I think makes me a better representative to have that experience in the courts, seeing what's going on in people's lives, helping those people. Many times it's pro bono, and having the office here in Drake that anybody can walk into. So I will continue to do the job that I've been doing. I did keep a promise for 8 years and did not practice law. But I felt that I needed to get out into the field and see what was going on, and it has been a real eye-opener, whether it be on the opioid addiction or other things, domestic violence. I see that in the family court. So I will do that. I will work my part-time law practice around my full-time job.
Thank you. Ray?
I want to be real clear on this because there might be some misunderstanding. I am a private sector guy with 25 years of private sector experience working 60, 70 hours a week. My current job is 35 hours a week with the ability to also bring it down to 28 if I have to. I think I can certainly handle both positions as a full-time, two full-time jobs. And I would say that many of our residents are forced to have 2 full-time jobs to get by. Why can't a state legislator? Right. And the other thing, if I'm elected, I will not vote with Speaker DeLeo 89% of the time, like my opponent, and claim I'm bipartisan. I am a strong proponent that we need 2-party government in this state to come back to some common sense legislation and bring some integrity and common sense leadership to the state.
Okay, so let's, you were asking for something before. I think we've now hit that time. Ray, why don't you enlighten the voters and tell them what your full-time job is now?
I work for the town of Ipswich as the business manager. We have a water department, wastewater department, and electric department. So in my role, I am very involved with the budgets. I'm a CPA and a budget hawk. So that's what I work on most of the time is budgets. I understand budgets. I understand fiscal spending.
So as a North Shore resident myself, the commute from Drake to Ipswich isn't an easy commute. So you would keep that job,
Yes.
plus be a state rep.
And it, like I said,
Yes or no? Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I have a great deal of flexibility in my work, and I'll tell you this: the drive is not as bad as you think. I spend a heck of a lot less time in my car now than when I worked in Wilmington and had to drive on Route 93.
Colleen?
So I'm just a little confused. He said the private sector, but he says he works for the town of Ipswich. Isn't that a public?
I worked in the private sector for 25 years. I've only worked for I worked in spent most of my life in the electronics industry, and until someone thought globalization was a good idea. And I worked to get the last company I worked at certified for the Department of Labor for retraining, so that everybody that worked at that company had the opportunity to retrain to get a new career. I took advantage of that and became an accountant. So 25 years in private sector, including my own business and providing jobs and know what it's like to fund payroll, and moved into the public sector about 2 years ago.
Okay, Ray, you took most of that time. Colleen,
So you're gonna accept 2 public full-time salaries?
The first thing I did before I even decided to run was talk to the ethics committee to make sure that there were no issues with me doing that, and no problem as long as I'm not working
So I'm going to butt in here. So you have an opinion from the State Ethics Commission that says it would be okay for you, it would be legal for you to work, to retain your job in Ipswich and be a state representative.
That is correct.
You have a document, you have a letter.
I didn't document it with a letter, but I called them and talked to them and talked to their lawyers. I mean, if that would satisfy you, I'd be glad to do
Well,
that. Yeah.
it would be up to the voters of
Yeah.
Drake and Tingsboro. Colleen?
I just think that's kind of odd that you'd be working 2 public jobs and getting 2 full-time public pays for the job. I'm not sure what the question was originally.
No, we're talking about being a full-time
Oh, okay.
representative versus part-time.
Yeah.
And retaining jobs on the side.
Yeah.
So are we all set with this question? Does anyone else want to say anything about that? Ray, you all set?
I'm just saying, I don't think it's odd at all. You know, I'll work diligently at both jobs.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, next question, Colleen, this goes to you. A state college education is fast becoming out of reach for many students in Massachusetts. For example, at UMass Lowell, tuition, room, and board is nearly $27,000 this year. Why do you think state college costs are rising so quickly, and what would you do to help keep them under control, or to rein them in?
Actually, I think one of the biggest problems is the golden parachutes that some of the executives get. And that's something that I've been fighting, and I've been fighting with Governor Baker on that. To try to get, you know, if you've got a president of a company or a community college, and who's really keeping track of their sick time? And then they leave 2 people retiring and taking $400,000 out of that community college as buyback. You know, I think that's wrong. I don't think that there should be these large golden parachutes. I'm only petrified to find out what happens when Marty Meehan retires from president of University of Massachusetts. I have nieces who are sophomores, one at UMass Amherst and one at UMass Lowell, and yeah, it's an incredible expense for their families, and they've got friends that can't even afford to go, and they're working to hopefully be able to go to school someday. So I think that we need to look at what the executives at these colleges are being paid, especially the public colleges.
Thank you. Ray?
I agree that college education is very expensive. I don't think that college education is necessarily for everyone, and there could be other avenues for someone's career. But I would say if the administrators are getting too much money, that certainly happened while my opponent was in the state legislature, and could have been looking at that right along instead of where we are today.
Well, I have been looking at it
Okay,
right along.
hold on. So I just want to stay on this issue for a minute. Colleen, this issue was covered extensively in The Sun, in large part by me when I was
Right.
reporting full-time. You did file legislation following the resignation of, I guess, 2 of the community college presidents, right?
Right.
That might have been 2 or 3 years ago. What
Right.
became of that legislation?
The unfortunate part is the unions are afraid that we haven't defined it enough so the average union guy loses their sick leave or their vacation time buyout. And so we will continue to work, and the governor was the one that reached out to me and said, I'm doing this bill, will you be in this press release with me, because you're leading the force on this. So we will continue to fight this, and we have been fighting. Unfortunately, the legislature, I guess Ray doesn't understand, we don't do the contracts for these administrators. It's the administration, it's the Board of Trustees that do that. We don't have that control. So it really is not in our purview, but we can try to change the way that these buyouts happen.
Thank you. Ray, another crack at that apple?
Yeah, I would just say, I understand this. The legislature controls the purse strings. So if there was less money going to the higher educations, the Board of Trustee would probably have to make different decisions on how they paid people. You're part of the supermajority Democratic Party. If you can't get it done, I don't.
Again, you don't understand. We fund the Middlesex Community College line item. It's up to the trustees and the president to decide where things go. And if you really think that they're not going to take care of the guy on the top when he's making the budget, we don't have a line item for presidents of the college. We don't have a line item for administrators of the college, and one for student aid for the
Okay,
college. It
thank you.
goes to the college.
Thank you, Colleen. I'm going to cut you off. I'm just going to veer off script here right now and just give each of you an opportunity to ask one another a question. I didn't have that on my agenda tonight, but I think it's a way to spice it up a little bit. So
Cool.
Ray, ask the incumbent a question. Then Colleen, you can ask the challenger a question. And then we're approaching 7 o'clock, then we'll do 2-minute closing statements, okay?
Okay. What would you say is your most significant piece of legislation that you've written and gotten passed through the legislature?
Actually, I'm very excited about it. It is the $1.6 billion courthouse bond committee bill that authorized courthouses throughout the Commonwealth. I visited courthouses all over, and included the special courthouse here for Lowell, where anybody who's going to have criminal, family law, juvenile law, anything to deal with the law will not have to go to Cambridge any longer. They'll be able to go to Lowell. Jobs will be in Lowell. We'll be able to do that. And that was I was chair of the courthouse bond committee, and I was able to pass that bill. Okay? So, Ray, the question I have for you, you're a member of the finance committee.
Correct.
You got up at town meeting, and
Which town meeting, Colleen?
what was it, was it May? When did you get up? Yeah, May.
Okay.
In May, you got up and you made a motion to split the ballot questions for the debt exclusion projects for the fire station and the school security. You made a big statement and had your day on the floor. What was interesting to me was a week before that, April 30th, as a member of the Finance Committee, you made the motion to accept the ballot, the warrant article, recommend approval as it was. You also then have said in the past that you were not in favor of them being done by debt exclusion, that they should have been funded in the budget. But you didn't mention that when you were voting to approve that one amendment, that one warrant article. What changed in 1 week that you said, oh yeah, we'll pass this through, it's a good idea, 2 projects and 1 debt exclusion, and then the next week you get up at town meeting and you say, I want to split this, and guess what? I don't support
Okay,
them
let's get to that
as
question.
debt exclusion.
Thank you. Ray?
It's very easy to explain. During the meeting, I asked those very same questions about why are these items bundled together. I don't think that's a good process because what's going to happen the next time? Are they going to bundle 3 things together? I think every item should be judged on its own merit. But unless you don't understand the role of the Finance Committee asks questions about funding and methods, and then has to decide, do we want this to go to town meeting or not? And that's really what you're voting for. Do you want it to go forward to the voters? At town meeting, what I was saying is that I stood up and said that these should be 2 different items judged on their own merit. And also I said that because of various things that are coming towards the town now in the form of the watershed and those things, we need to fund it from the general fund. So it's a very easy position for me to say. You were the one that stood up at town meeting and said that you were going to try to get $4 million for the firehouse, and then had to back away from that. Right.
Colleen, you can respond to that, then we'll go to closing statements.
So the reality of it, if you, obviously you weren't listening, because we said the governor had to release the money. And if we had not gotten up there and told the public that we got it in our budget, in our bond bill, and then they voted for it and we got the money, people would say you weren't transparent. Why didn't you tell us? We got up there, we explained the process, maybe you weren't listening. We said it was all up to the governor to make that determination. I still don't know why all of a sudden you made the motion to put that debt exclusion with 2 things on the warrant.
I don't understand why you have a hard time with it.
20 seconds.
Right? I said it should be 2 separate items.
You know what? I have the minutes of the meetings. It doesn't show any of that. I've asked
I
members
asked
who
the
were there.
question, I asked the town manager that very same question.
But,
right?
so why would you even put that forward? Let somebody else make the motion if you didn't agree with it.
I don't even follow. What do you mean I didn't agree with it? I
You
wanted
didn't
it to go
agree-
to the voters. I wanted the voters to be able to vote on each item individually, not bundled.
Okay, I think we've, okay. So let's
Flip-
move on to the closing statements. And Colleen, you can go first. You have 2 minutes, and then Ray, the Republican candidate for state representative, you can go second. Colleen, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris Scott and Amaris and Drake at TV and Ray for participating. And I want to thank all of my workers, campaign workers who are here tonight and throughout. I appreciate all of your support. And I appreciate Kim and the people who are supporting Ray as well, because that's all what democracy is about. So I have been state representative for 24 years. I have worked full-time for the people of Drake and Tingsboro. I am a Democrat. I am an old-time Democrat. But you know what? The only people that I'm concerned about are the Drake and Tingsboro residents. I don't care if it's a Democrat idea, Republican idea. At this point, I think I join with many people just saying we should just get rid of the parties. Never mind this two-party balance. Enough is enough. We need to get on with things. And I think we work in a bipartisan way, and that's why things get done in Boston that don't get done in Washington, D.C., because we don't let the two-party balance cause problems in our nation. So I would ask for your vote. I feel that I've earned the trust for these last 24 years. I've worked hard. I've been there for folks. I want to continue to be there for you and your families. And we've had a great run of delivery of projects, and I want to continue to have that happen. So I ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank
you, Colleen. Ray.
I also want to thank the Lowell Sun and for everybody attending and everybody that participates in the democratic process. I'm running for state representative because I think Drake and Tingsboro deserve better. I think we deserve better than billion-dollar tax increases. I think we deserve better than scandals and corruption, and we deserve better than business as usual on Beacon Hill. We've heard a lot of talk tonight, and I feel the choice is clear. My opponent is a career politician with a history of raising taxes and voting with the Democrat supermajority. I'm a businessman with 25 years of private sector experience and a history of finding creative solutions to complex problems. Are we going to continue moving the state in the wrong direction with one-party rule, or do we want to begin the march to two-party balance and the accountability and transparency it naturally provides? I say let's begin reforming our state government right here in Drake and Tingsboro. As your state representative, I'll work with Governor Baker to hold the line on spending and taxes, stop government overreach, increase local aid for education, safety in our roads, support law enforcement, and stop Massachusetts from becoming a sanctuary state. You can count on my commitment to serve you with common sense and integrity. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So be sure to get out and vote on November 6th. State Representative Colleen Gary seeking her 13th term, and Republican Ray Lazinski, thank you for participating this evening. We'll just take a brief intermission. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Scott, the Enterprise Editor at The Sun, and welcome to this evening's second debate here at Harmony Hall in the town of Drake. I want to thank everyone for coming, and I want to welcome the viewers at home. We had a nice spirited debate between the state rep candidates, Colleen Gary and Ray Lazinski. And with us now are Barry Feingold from Andover and Joe Espinola from Drake. These are two fellas that are vying to represent the 2nd Essex and Middlesex District in the state Senate. You would probably recall that that seat is currently occupied by Barbara L'Italian of Andover. However, she relinquished that seat to run ultimately unsuccessful for Congress from the 3rd Congressional District. With me here is Amaris Castile, who will be reporting on the event tonight. She does a great job covering the race for us and the state rep race. On behalf of my editor, Jim Campanini, too, again, thank you for everyone for attending. I'd like to just get into just a couple of quick ground rules, which I've discussed with the candidates. There will be no opening statements. They'll get a 2-minute closing statement. I'll pose the questions. The candidates will have 1 minute to respond with a 30-second rebuttal, but if they insist on going back and forth, I'll let it happen. The more you guys hear of them and the less of me, the better. So without further ado, let's get right to the questions, okay? Joe, I think you're going to get the first question. Let me just get my phone ready and my timer ready.
I'll pass.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Joe, what is the advantage for the 2nd Essex and Middlesex District, which besides Drake it obviously includes Andover, Tewksbury, and Lawrence, to be represented by a Republican?
That's a really good question. And people ask me all the time, what am I going to be able to do if I get elected as a Republican to go into the State House? I know a tremendous amount of people at the State House. I know Republicans, I know Democrats, I know everything. And what would be the advantages that I think that I would be able to push the people that have been elected and have promised this district things over the years that they haven't come through with, to make sure that they know that you promised Drake, Tewksbury, Andover, and Lawrence things that haven't come true yet. You haven't followed through. You haven't done the things that you said what you're going to do, and the place is still in dire need of the support that they have. So my advantage is that Democrats have let the district down, and I will point that out to them and make sure that everybody knows that when I get there, we're going to work together and we're going to get things done.
Thank you. Barry, I'm just going to change one word there and say, what is the advantage for the 2nd Essex and Middlesex District to be represented by a Democrat?
Well, I think first of all, Democrat will be in the majority, so more than likely I'll be a chair and I can do things for the district. But I think it's really less about party. I think it's more about experience. And I do believe I have the experience from day one to get the job done. But regardless of a Democrat or Republican, I'm very proud of some of the things I've accomplished with Republicans. When I helped write the Safe Havens Law, I worked with Bruce Tarr, who's the Republican leader, and we did this together. And when I did election law reform, I had Senator Robert Hedlund, who was part of the committee with me. We worked together. We had a great bipartisan bill. So even though I'm a Democrat, I'm very proud of all the bipartisan work that I did as a senator.
Thank you. Joe, you all set? Any rebuttal?
Yeah, I'm okay with it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this next question kind of hits on the experience that both of you guys mentioned. Barry, you're a former member of the Andover School Committee, if I remember correctly, right?
Selectman.
Selectman,
Selectman,
okay.
yeah.
You're a former state rep, and you're a former state senator.
Yep.
What is it about that experience that makes you the most qualified for this seat?
Well, I think understanding issues, I'm very proud to have served on the local level. It's one of the toughest positions. I think Joe will agree with this, that when you're on the front lines, being a selectman, a school committee member, it is really hard. So I've taken that experience. Then being a member of the House of Representatives, I understand how that body works. And it's different than the Senate. You have 160 members, and it's tough to get things done. So I can work with the members of the House, to, whether it's Colleen Gary or someone else, to get things done. And as a member of the Senate, I'm ready to go from day one. I know how to get things done, whether it's funding for new Drake at High School, or we have some big challenges with some of our elementary schools like Campbell and Brookside and Englesby. Like those are some of the things that I know I can do from day one to help get this district moving forward. So I think all that experience of having the local level, House of Representatives, and State Senate makes me ready to go from day one.
Thank you. Now, Joe, we discussed this in the editorial board meeting that we had with you at the Sun yesterday. You're a former police officer in Lowell. You're a current member of the Greater Lowell Technical High School Committee. How do you think that municipal experience stacks up against Barry's?
Well, I have to say that the ins and outs of the finances and the funding formulas and the budgets, according to the school and the DESE worksheets that we have to follow. When I first started on the school committee, I looked at it, and it was pretty much overwhelming with the amount of information that we had to absorb and learn into it. And 5 years later, we are able to, well, myself, I'm able to participate in meetings at the State House, participate in meetings outside of the district of the State House, outside of the district, to correlate existing school committees to lobby senators and people that are in charge of committees to bring more funding to our school systems. When I first started, we were at 52% of transportation costs were given to the school systems. We're up over 70% right now. And when you talk about funding schools and fully funding education, transportation sucks the life out of a school budget. So we have to do something about
Okay,
that.
thank you. Joe, this next question goes to you first. Given the recent increases in electricity rates and recent gas safety and gas pipeline controversies in the district, particularly two towns in your Senate district, Andover and Lawrence, what steps should our state government take that they have not yet taken to make the energy system safer, greener, or less expensive?
It seems to me, and I just happen to have a contractor's license, I have an experience in infrastructure, I've built roads, I've built houses, I've built many infrastructure projects throughout the state of Massachusetts. And what happens is, the people that are in charge of the utilities right now, they come in front of the state and they ask for their increases. And they ask for the increases for their board of directors and for their shareholders, not to fix what's going on with utilities and whatnot. The safety plans are there. If you were to go from the cities and towns and move back to the state, the cities and towns will be able to tell you what we need to support this. Now, if there was that type of an incident that happened in Lawrence, happened in Dracut, my house would have been shut down of gas like that, because the meter on my house has a diaphragm that shuts down when there is a force of pressure. Now, I don't know why all these meters aren't making up this, but the legislator, the state and the House, they're dropping the ball on this. And if you followed it back, it goes down to if you follow the money, there are a lot of people donating to the federal
Okay, wrap it
government,
up, please.
to the state and the legislator. There's a lot of people donating, and maybe
Okay.
they just don't want to take care of it.
Barry, you have a few extra seconds on that one too, okay?
First of all, it's something that I've been personally affected by. My house doesn't have gas. Hopefully, very soon it does. Where I work doesn't have gas. I'm involved with some buildings in Andover that doesn't have gas, and there's a lot of families, especially in Lawrence, that are really hurting right now. And my heart goes out to all these families because it's just not easy, and it's been getting cold, and it's cold out there. A couple of years back, I was very proud that I wrote the bill, which is called the Account of Public Utilities. And it's funny, it really was dealt with some articles that the Centennial Enterprise wrote about Unitel in Fitchburg, where there was this company called Unitel where they weren't being responsive to getting the power back on for communities like Fitchburg. And as a result, then Senator Jen Flanagan, I think it was Rep. Jennifer Flanagan, came to us as I was chair of the Energy Committee and said, we have to do something about this. And we wrote this bill. And what it did, it fined public utilities if they didn't timely respond getting the power back on. But little did I know that we put a little provision in there that allowed the governor to fire a public utility if they didn't perform the way they should. And this is what Governor Baker recently did to bring in Eversource to help out with Columbia Gas. So it's an area I'm very passionate about. I think that we have to move from a fossil fuel economy to a renewable base economy, and it's not only good for our wallets, it's good for our health, and it's also very important for our public safety.
Thank you. Okay, this next question, Barry, will go to you first. Should state legislators be allowed to vote on their own rate of pay? And if not, how should that pay be regulated or set?
It's always one of the hardest decisions to make about, should legislators vote on their own pay or should it be done elsewhere?
They always vote yes. It seems pretty easy, but
Yeah, I mean, look, I actually, I've done the job and I've been outside of the job. It is a really hard job. What's very demanding about it is people want you nights and weekends, and if you're going to do this job right, it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So I don't fault the legislator for wanting a good pay for what they do. And there isn't a perfect way, because if you tie it into CPI, some years it goes up, some years it doesn't go up. But I think if you look at what the legislators make compared to the rest of the states, I think it's in line, and I think it's a very difficult job, and I think I don't have a problem with what they've done.
so you're okay with the reps and senators voting on their own salaries?
As long as it's reasonable and it's incomparable to other states, and I'm okay with it. If all of a sudden Massachusetts has the highest pay for legislators, then I don't think it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
So I guess a 40% pay raise is okay for everybody?
Sorry.
I don't know anybody in this room that's got a 40% pay raise. And it's amazing to me how the legislator right now, Barry talks about being able to hit the ground running, and I say this all the time. if you're going to hit the ground running in Boston, you're going to hit a wall, because nothing happens in Boston. Nothing happens. Everything has to be legislated by ballot. We have a casino bill that hasn't been fully taken care of yet. We have marijuana, which I'm against, but it still hasn't been activated yet. We have all kinds of bills that have been put in front, lowering the taxes, lowering everything, and the state legislator is responsible for acting what the city and towns are asking them to do. They can't do it. But in the less than a month, they vote themselves a 40% pay raise. Now, it's got nothing to do with whether they should get it or not. Why does it take them less than a month to give themselves a 40% pay raise and then have taken so long to vote for things that the people have specifically voted for? And legislating by ballot is what's happening in this state right now. And what I say is this: it is a slow process out there at the State House, and I think that they can do better.
Thank you,
So
Barry. I know you're not
wasn't
there
I
anymore,
understand.
but
I wasn't
think you'd
there
like
when
to
they
respond.
voted for that, but, you know, just for the record.
Is that, any more response on that?
No.
But that's the experience you'll bring there.
Okay. Joe, this next question, I think, goes to you first. Would you support state-sanctioned injection sites to help battle the opiate epidemic?
Absolutely not. We have state-sanctioned safe sites right now. They're called hospitals and rehabs. We don't need to have a place on the side of the road where people can safely inject their heroin. Heroin is against the law. And what we're doing right now is we are enabling these people to continue to have a problem in their life that has not been taken care of. These people need help. Eventually, they're going to die. They're not going to make it to these little safe injection sites like an ATM on the side of the road. Eventually, these people are going to die. We need to come up with a policy that states when you are caught with heroin, you need to go to a process where if you are injected or you are nasal with Narcan or you are an overdose victim or whatever, there needs to be a time where you have to have a so-called timeout, maybe a 4-day, 5-day stay, and I know that Governor Baker is really in tune with this, so that you can give a person a chance to clear their mind and effectively make a decision as a sober person on what their life is going to look like the rest of their time that they're here.
Thank you. Barry?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things the governor has tried to do is not bad, but I think 72-hour bed, we need more time than that. I think we should have, you know, if people need 30 days, I think that is something that we should do. But I think the thing that we really need to find out is why are people, you know, choosing this lifestyle, and I think that we have to help people. I think one of the things that really concerns me is overprescription to young people. We have all these people getting hurt in sports, and they're getting prescribed, you know, 20, 25 pills of OxyContin, and I just don't think that's necessary, and I think we have to seriously look at why is there so much overprescribing of opioids in our society, and I think that is what we should be focused on, less about whether we have these sites or not, and I think it's very concerning when you have so much young people that are getting hooked, and what happens is they start using, you know, OxyContin, and that gets too expensive, and they switch to heroin, and that's why we have this epidemic. So it is a serious issue. It's the one issue that, whether it's in Lawrence, Andover, Tewksbury, Drake, every community has had this issue, and it's the thing that is really probably one of the top priorities. That's something I want to work on.
But your opponent, hold on, Joe. Your opponent did say he was opposed to safe injection sites,
Yeah,
and that was
I
the
just-
question. So
I
could
guess
you
my-
answer that
I
question,
guess my
please?
answer is, I just don't think that's the solution. I think other solutions should be giving more stay in beds, dealing with overprescribing. I think that's what we should focus on instead of.
So you're opposed to
Yes.
safe injection?
Yeah.
Thank you. Joe, are you all set?
Now, as far as the opiate prescriptions is concerned, if, again, we go back to, you look at all the ills in society, you're looking at insurances, big pharma, utilities, all the things that are bothering the people in the communities, the middle-class workers. They're the ones that are feeding the politicians with all of the contributions to their campaigns. So they let this run rampant in the states and the country with overprescribing people. And I know what it's all about. My brother died of opiate overdose, so it's nothing new to me. So we need to do something better, and it's not like, let's do this, let's do this. And right now, what we're doing is we are enabling people to take heroin and Narcan them and make sure that they're all set. And my thing would be this.
Okay, wrap it up, please.
You tell kids in school that, no, if you do heroin, we have Narcan for you. No. if you do heroin, you're gonna die. That's what we need to start telling people.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off. Barry, do you, anything else on that? All right, next question to you, Barry. If elected, would you pledge to serve a finite number of terms?
I don't know. I don't know how many terms I'll serve, so I don't want to say I'm going to serve, 8 terms, 6 terms, 4 terms, but I do know that every day if I'm given this opportunity, I'm going to work and give 110% and be a relentless advocate for Hanover, Tewksbury, Lawrence, and Drake.
Are you generally in favor of term limits, or do you oppose term limits?
I just don't think that right now we need term limits. I think the voters have term limits, and if they don't like any one of us, they can vote us off if one of us is elected.
Thank you. Joe?
So in 2014, you voted 4 term limits. That was the year you were voting for treasurer. You said that 8 years was enough to serve as a senator. Now you're saying that you don't really need, that's according to Smart Voter, everybody can go online and look at it. That's how I got
think
it.
so.
And you voted 4 term limits, that was the year you were running for treasurer. And at that time, you were 8 years in office. So is
I
it
was
4?
8 years in office?
At 2006 you started, and 2014 is when this vote happened. So
know
7
if I
years,
have to
6
check on that,
years,
Joe.
whatever. It's a Smart Voter.
Okay.
Smartvoter.org, it's on there. Maybe if it's wrong, I don't know, I apologize, but I just go by that. It's pretty good.
So your question is?
My question is, you supported term limits when you were running for treasurer, and now you don't support term limits. Is there a reason why you have changed your mind?
Yeah, I don't think I supported term limits.
Okay.
No, so you have some more time on that if you want.
No, I don't think I
I
supported term limits.
apologize, but it's on Smart Voter, so that's where I got it from.
Okay, Joe, the next question goes to you. Do you think the recently signed into law red flag bill by Governor Baker will significantly curtail gun violence?
Absolutely not. If it even makes a trickle, I'd be surprised. I've spent 25 years plus years in law enforcement, and I have spent most of that time in family services as a domestic violence detective and a child services detective. And I would tell you this, that what happens is, a law like this is just like the 209A with the domestic violence restraining order. It's used as a tool and sometimes a weapon to other people. This red flag thing isn't going to do anything but affect the people that are going to become victims as a way of somebody getting even with them. So I think that thing, that red flag or whatever, I think that was something that it was a feel-good legislation, like I say. It doesn't work, and they obviously didn't talk to anybody in law enforcement because they would have told them the same thing. The domestic violence 209A restraining orders, it's a piece of paper. It's not going to stop you when someone's coming to hurt you. So that red flag, it's a feel-good piece of legislation.
Yeah,
Barry.
I agree with the governor, but Joe, are you against restraining orders, 209As?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Nope.
so then why is it a bad thing?
They're weapons. People use them as weapons against other people. Now, it's a whole different ballgame
hold on.
with the 209A.
Barry?
Yeah, I just want to know, are you against restraining orders, so why are you criticizing restraining
So
orders?
I will say it again. No, I'm not.
Okay.
I was a domestic violence detective for 10 years.
Okay.
I am not against 209A orders, but I have trained police officers up and down the East Coast about domestic violence. I have seen the weaponry that has become of the 209A. It's not an end-all, be-all. It's a way for the police to have a decision on whether we can help serve an instance where we can help save someone until the court can intervene and do it.
Okay, wrap it up, Joe.
The red flag is something that anybody in this room could call the police tomorrow and say, Barry Feingold is not right. He has guns at his house. I want him to have his guns removed. And then that's it. You go to
Okay,
the court
I'm going to
and
cut you
take
off. I'd
your
like to give the
guns.
floor to Barry. The question was to
Okay.
him. Barry?
No, I just said I agree with what Governor Baker did, but I was just concerned with what Joe was saying about, domestic, 209As, so that's why I asked him
That's
about
fine.
that, so.
So on the red flag,
I
though,
agree with the Governor Baker on it.
can you elaborate?
No, I think it's something that, when it comes to gun violence, we have to put things in place to, make sure people are protected.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question is going to be related to the 3 ballot questions that are going to be decided on November 6th. Barry, I'll give the first question to you. How will you vote this November 6th on question 1, which seeks to establish patient assignment limits for registered nurses working in hospitals and other healthcare facilities?
Well, I've supported safe staffing issues, especially in emergency rooms, So I'm not against safe staffing, but what I'm concerned about is how this is going to affect Lawrence General, how this is going to affect Lowell General. These are not Boston hospitals. They are hospitals that are barely getting by. So that is why I'm against question one, because I don't understand how, if you put this mandate on, how can Lowell General, Lawrence General be able to afford this and be able to stay in business? And we all think that our hospital is going to be around here forever. That's not true. I've seen other community hospitals close. These are great hospitals. 2 of my kids were born in Lowell General. 1 was born in Lawrence General. They are great hospitals. I want to keep these hospitals. And if you have this mandate, I don't know how they're going to financially be able to stay around.
Thank you. Candidate Espinola.
I agree with Barrett. Yes, I do.
All right, there we
And,
go.
and I will say this because
All right.
I have several friends who are nurses at the Greater Lowell Tech. We actually train nurses, and they're still part of the program. They're teachers, they're guest speakers, whatever. And they're out there, they're on the floor. They're not in a office, they're not in an administrative position, and they say that no should be the answer because staffing limits is going to hurt the patients, because when there is no patients and there's more nurses and doctors and no patients, then that costs more money to the consumer. If there's more patients and less doctors and nurses, they call in more doctors and nurses to bring up the staffing. So I think we let the hospitals do this and not the government.
Sounds good. Thank you. Next question, to you, Joe. How will you vote on question 2, which asks voters if they approve of a proposed law that would create a citizens commission to consider and recommend potential amendments to the U.S. Constitution to limit corporate donations to campaigns?
I disagree with the citizen participation part of it, but I absolutely agree that something has to be done with the corporations and the amount of money that they're spending. And we just look at our local Congress race and the Senate race. I mean, you could particularly take care of the national debt in like Africa or whatever with the amount of money that they're spending. So it's ridiculous to me to have that amount of money put into a campaign for a job that pays $250,000 a year plus meal money. I just don't understand it. So I don't know if the Civic Commission is good. It's better than a government commission, that's for sure. So I guess I agree with it.
Thank you. Barry?
Yeah, I agree. I think with Citizens United, we have to get, big money out of politics. It's just, it's challenging where so much money is so part of what we do. So I think it's something that should be passed and something that should be looked into, and hopefully we can make changes to Citizens United.
Thank you. The next question goes to you, Barry. This is the last ballot question. On question 3, do you support upholding the state law that prohibits discrimination, based on gender identity in public places?
Yes. Yes,
That's it?
I do. I think we need to move on. I think there's so many other issues we should be talking about, and we spend so much time talking about this particular issue, and we should move on. There's so many other important issues we should be talking about: transportation, education, crime, opioids, and we continue to talk about the same issue. So, yes, I support it, and we need to move on and talk about other very important
We'll get to
issues.
some of those other issues
Yeah.
tonight, too, hopefully. Joe, how are you on question 3?
Again, a ballot legislation comment that we have to deal with. I'm not for anybody using any bathroom they want to. I don't think there's anybody in here that is more educated on transgendered, same-sex, transfluid, or any type of bathrooms than I am, being a school committee man. We deal with it over and over and over again. How each time there's a specific incident that arises in the school that of a person identifying a certain way, we have to make adjustments to our rest of the school to make them feel comfortable and safe. But what that happens when you do that, you make other people feel unsafe. So I feel that if it comes down to a point where other people feeling unsafe versus a small part feeling safe, I brought up a fact that why can't we just make it a point where every bathroom has one person at a time?
Okay,
a
so-
family bathroom, one person at a time, and that's it. And I was told that is
All right.
discriminatory.
Let me phrase the question again. Will you vote yes or no on question 3?
I will be voting against, I will be repealing the bill.
Okay, that's what it sounded like. Thank you. Let's move on. In all these debates that the Sun does, we do this thing called the lightning round, where we just ask some quick questions. They're kind of off the cuff, and just answer really fast, and then we'll move on to some more questions. Barry, we'll start with you on this. If you had the power to take one show off of television, what show would it be?
Maybe Family Feud. I mean, I guess actually I like Family Feud.
Were you here?
That. So,
Family
Were
Feud.
you here?
what was that?
That was Ray's answer.
I swear, I didn't hear Ray's answers. Ray, did you actually say that?
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of hokey, but I mean, I don't know. I could go on, I guess.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, enough. Joe.
I would take Game of Thrones because
Game of Thrones?
I would take it off the air.
Oh, no.
It is destroying our youth. It's just crazy. These Game of Thrones and,
Okay.
and all
I have
this
a real
stuff.
problem with that.
I would take it.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that later. Joe, should the state abandon daylight savings time and switch to Atlantic Standard Time?
You know what? I don't think it would make a difference, right? I don't really particularly care about going out in the morning and seeing it dark, and at night having it dark. So if it changed that, okay, I don't see what the big deal is. So, you know, it's kind of like, to me, it's
Okay.
a historical thing,
Good, thank you.
and I look at it that way.
Okay. Barry.
No, I mean, I think it's a tradition now, so I'm kind of stuck on tradition. So
Okay, Barry. In one word, what quality do you believe is the most important to possess to hold public office?
integrity.
Joe.
Truth,
Thank you. And Joe, what should the voting age be?
18.
Barry.
18.
Okay. Let's start with this next question. We'll go to Joe on this one. How should the state divvy up the big surplus that it had?
Well, it's amazing because the surplus came in and we were at the same time talking about what was the deficit to make all the schools in the Commonwealth whole. And it just happened to be enough money left over that we could have made all the Commonwealth schools whole and brought them up to par for at least 1 year. So I would have made a more concerted effort to bring more funds back. And the governor did, and the school, well, I think they did. They didn't vote on it before they went on recess, so everybody's still holding their breath, trying to figure out whatever. But I would have given more money back to the school systems and tried to alleviate some of the problems with the funding for the schools.
Thank you, Barry.
I would save it. I've seen the ups and the downs, and the reason why you have a rainy day fund is to make sure that when things get tough, that you have some money so you don't have to do drastic cuts. I also think it's very important to our bond rating to have a large, reserve fund. So I think it's very important for us not to, just think that because we've had a couple good years that this is always the way it's going to be. Because I've seen the lean years and I've seen the layoffs, and I don't want to go back to that. So I think the best thing we can do is to save the money and do what it's supposed to do as a rainy day fund and use it for when it's a rainy day.
I don't know if you've seen in Drake it's pouring in Drake right now and the roofs are leaking.
I'd like to just stay on this topic for a minute because I
Yeah.
think it was brought up by one of the candidates for state rep, that shouldn't some of that money be returned to the taxpayers? I mean, most of that is tax revenue. Some of it might be fees and other, other revenue that the state generated. Why not return some to the people that paid in the first place, Barry?
I think the thing we need to think about is that, is it always going to be there, and can we get through the tough times? I look at, my own personal household is, I save money for when things get tough. And if things get tough, that's when you save money. And, when you all of a sudden have to start laying off teachers, start laying off police officers, start laying off firefighters, it's not what we want to do. And we've made it through some of the difficult times by having a rainy day fund. And that's why when we build a new Drake High School, we get such a good rating for a bond rate for what we borrow money at, is because of a strong rainy day fund. So every time that there's a lot of money out there, and there's some people that want to spend it, some people want to cut taxes, and I guess I'm the person in the middle that says, hey, this doesn't last forever. Let's be fiscally responsible, maybe a little conservative,
Okay.
and make sure we don't,
Thank you.
blow through it.
Joe, how do you feel about that?
I
premise?
can say this, just running around, talking to people and being in the school committee and being in meetings where especially the town of Drake, every year usually has to go to a debt exclusion to do something. I think the amount of money that would go back to each taxpayer is minimal enough that if we were to propose it or the state legislator would propose it, I'm jumping the gun, we were to propose it as a money going back to the school systems especially for the school systems, I think that would be the favor
Suffice? Okay.
of people that are voters, instead of the rainy day fund. The rainy day fund is sufficient right now. It's, of course, we all want to have rainy day money. We want to have more rainy day money and more rainy day money.
Fair
But
enough.
They're
Thank you.
doing all right with their
All right,
bond
let's move on
ratings.
to a few more topics. Next question to you, Barry. Barry, what measures would you propose to relieve traffic gridlock throughout the district on local roads and bridges?
Well, I've seen what a huge difference, off at exit 46, what it's made to have that new interchange and to, do away
Exit
with.
40 down in Drake.
Yeah, right
in
off
Drake
93,
Methuen?
yeah. And I think we need more public infrastructure like that. I mean, it can take, from Drake, it can take, hour and 45 minutes and 2 hours to get into the city, and a lot of people do commute. And I think we have to do better to deal with our infrastructure. And I think we have to invest money in our roads and our bridges. And it's just something that we can't continue to put off. And I think that if, as a state, if we did something with 128 and 93 intersection, that we wouldn't have the backups that we do. So I think we have to be, think out of the box. One of the things I did early on in my, early on as a state rep is, between 3 and 7, we opened up the breakdown lane, which has saved a lot of time for people's commute. We need to think out of the box. We need to think differently about how we deal with transportation. We need more people to use public transportation, but we need transportation to be more accessible. So I think it's probably one of the biggest issues we face in this area, because there's a lot of people that commute into the city, and the commute's getting really difficult.
Joe?
If you just look at the bridges that are in the city of Lowell and how detrimental it is to Drake it, trying to get to the other side of the world. They're all ripped up. You got a temporary bridge that's been there for 32 years, maybe even 33 right now. It's been there so long they named it after somebody. It's temporary. So we'll see what happens. We need to fix that bridge, to replace it with a 4-lane bridge, maybe even put another bridge up. But it's interesting to me, and I'm going again with Smart Voter. In 2012, my opponent voted against transportation and infrastructure funds. So now that was 6 years ago. So if you had voted yes for the transportation funds, then maybe all of the issues that are in the state right now might not be. And it failed. And maybe we should have thought about this stuff a few years back to make sure that we're going to be able to, instead of taking care of the rainy day fund, maybe we should have put it into roads and infrastructure.
So, Barry, it sounds like he's blaming you for the gridlock, so could you please
Not you
respond?
personally, you were part of the legislature.
I think one of the things, especially in a town like Tewksbury, that I want to work on is Route 38. So when I grew up in Tewksbury, it would take us to go to what it used to be known as Stewart's, to go to its capital in Lowell, would maybe take you 10 minutes. That same drive would probably take you 35 minutes now. That's how bad the traffic has become. So one of the things I think we can do in Route 38 especially is I think if we had better traffic signalization, we had better turn lanes, I think it's a way to really kind of help mitigate some of the traffic that we've been seeing. But we have to work on this, because Route 38 is becoming Route 1, and it's taken way too long to get back and forth. And some of the things I'd want to work on is, traffic signalization, getting the funds back to the communities to help expedite traffic going back and forth.
Thank you. Joe, can you name one specific stretch of roadway or a bridge or an intersection that you would immediately address if you were elected? It sounds like he wants to hit Route 38. What about you?
VFW Highway. That place has been intermittent traffic for a year and a half right now. That is a major thoroughfare for the people in Drake
Okay,
right now.
but that's in Lowell, though.
That was in Lowell, but-
Give me gridlock in the district.
But what people have to understand is that when you're from Drake, the Lowell traffic affects Drake significantly. That Rourke Bridge, I bet you 5 out of 10 people in Drake go across that Rourke Bridge, or the Bridge Street Bridge, or the University Bridge, or whatever. So when you talk about this, I know everybody says it's not in my district, but you know what? It's something
That's fair.
we need to take care of, and I will be part of finding a solution to take care of that traffic. But every single bridge that people in Drake have to go across in Lowell to get to the highway is torn up right now. There's no safe way to get there. I think sometimes it might be less time to go to the rotary in Methuen to get onto 495 that way.
Okay.
So what we need to do is we need to have some sort of a concerted effort and a plan. People are just ripping things up right now.
I'm going to cut you off. You have
That's
the next
okay.
question. Joe, what is your view of sanctuary cities?
My view, do I support them?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Tell us why.
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you this, with my years in law enforcement, I know that the Democrats and the people who are saying, it depends on who you talk to and where they're speaking on whether Lawrence is a sanctuary city or they aren't a sanctuary city. But people that I have dealt with through domestic violence and through crimes, murder, drug dealing, whatever, people don't tell on other people because they don't want to die. That's the only reason why. In my whole 27 years, and I'll tell you, I'll line up 2, 5, 10 dozen police officers, and you can ask them in their 25 to 35 years, have they ever asked a victim if they are a citizen of this community? And it's not anything we care about. But I will say this. What happens now with ICE, when they have a domestic situation with somebody, they work with the victim to try to make them closer to the process of becoming a citizen. So if the government would have just taken care of the things that they've been saying they were going to do my whole lifetime with providing a comprehensive immigration reform plan, we wouldn't have a sanctuary city problem.
Thank you. Barry?
Yeah, I would just frankly agree with what he just said, is that, this is a state, this
You
is
said
not.
disagree, correct?
No, so basically what I'm saying is that this is a federal issue, and that this is something that can't be solved in the state and local level, that both Democrats and Republicans need to come together and have a common sense immigration plan and deal with this issue and not have this fall to the local state or local governments. So I hope that both Democrats and Republicans will step up, get together, and have a common sense immigration plan so we don't have to deal with it here on the local level.
But hold on, Joe, what's your view of sanctuary cities?
I would
however?
just say that, once again, it is something that the federal government should handle, and it's something that we should not be dealing with on a state and local level.
But I'm going to try to pin you down on this. He spoke on it.
Yeah. I'm just telling you right now that this is something that that the state and local governments shouldn't have to be dealing with. It should be the federal government that.
So what I want to add too is Massachusetts has come up with a health plan, a Romney Care plan that was a model for the country. Why can't we come up with an immigration reform plan that the rest of the country can feel like that's a place to go and that's a great start? Let's follow the lead. They say it all the time. The way Massachusetts
Joe,
goes, the
we
way the
can't.
rest of the country
Okay,
goes.
thank you. Joe, hold on. Barry?
I mean, we would be usurped. If we tried to do anything on immigration, the federal government wouldn't allow it. So it's something the federal government has to step up. This is something that both Democrats and Republicans on the federal level need to get done. And as Joe said, it shouldn't be falling down to state and local level.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. This goes to you, Barry. If the millionaires tax proposal came back before the legislature, would you support it? And if so, why should residents who earn a lot of money pay more taxes?
Well, I don't think it is going to come back because it was ruled unconstitutional. I think there has to be something.
But there have been legislators who've said they're going to try to bring it back.
I think I would be open to working with someone that brings more equity and fairness, but right now, under the current bill, it was ruled unconstitutional. But I think there's a huge problem with income inequality, and I think we need to find ways of dealing with income inequality. And I'm open to trying to work with people to deal with income inequality.
The reason why it was found unconstitutional is because it was discriminatory in nature, because you're discriminating against people who make a lot of money. I don't think it's a fair plan. I don't think it's fair to the people who make a lot of money. If you make $40,000, you pay X in taxes. If you make $4 million, you pay the same X in taxes per thousand. So they're already paying more money than what you have. So you're penalizing people who are making a lot of money and potentially forcing them out of the district. As I heard the people at the state rep seat earlier, they said they have houses everywhere. All they got to do is change their address and put a forwarding label at the mailbox. So to me, I think it's not good having these millionaires in this state spending money, eating dinners, staying here instead of going to Florida with wherever they're going to go to avoid taxes. I think that it's better to treat them fairly. They're already paying their taxes according to the money they make.
Let's just stick with taxation for a minute. I don't have this question on my list, but it just came into my head. What about the carbon tax, the proposed carbon tax? There's a state senator from Chelmsford, Mike Barrett, who would like to see a carbon tax institute in the state of Massachusetts. What about you on that, Joe?
I have no idea what the particulars are of that carbon tax. Is he talking about the emissions that come out of your car?
You'd be taxed based on the number of miles you drive. If you drive a lot of miles, you're going to have to pay the state more in taxes.
Is that how they're masquerading it, a carbon tax?
If you happen to have a short commute, you won't pay as much in taxes.
So you're going to tax the people who are working every day or going someplace. I think it's a disgrace.
Check Mike Barrett's website.
Yeah, I will. I think it's a disgrace. If you're paying, you're gonna tax people that are going, so not only you're taxing the income they're making, you're gonna tax them for getting to the place where they're making the income so that the state legislator can take all the money that they get, put in the rainy day fund.
Yeah, I have concerns with it as well, but I think what we should be doing is instead of focusing on carbon tax, we should give tax credits to those who, if they put solar panels on their house, if they, have things that are what I consider to be pro-environmental. So I think it should be less of a penalty, but more of a carrot, and give people incentive to do things that are more friendly to the environment. That's going to help us in the long term. And I think the state has done a pretty good job of doing things like SRECs, which is, solar renewable, credits. And I think that's the way we should go, less about being penalized.
Sounds good. All right, Joe, this next question goes to you. How do you define the term leadership? And can you give us an example in your professional career of an instance where your leadership helped others?
Okay. Leadership is something that you do to get the people around you to attain a certain goal. Not by forcing them to do things, but pulling people together as a team to get things done, to get the end goal accomplished. I've done that consistently through my whole life as a coach. I've done it as a political person, as a school committee man. I've done it on volunteering. I've done it in the police department when I was on the emergency control. I also have done it when I was on the SWAT team for Massachusetts. So leadership is getting people, or getting the elements and the tools you have around you, including people and whatever, and getting a job specifically to be attained.
Thank you, Barry.
I think leadership is done by example. Back in 2014, we had a real crisis in this region where our favorite son, Artie Demoulas, was having challenges with his internal family, and they wanted to force him out. And I think what would have happened is Market Basket would have been sold. And what would happen is, someone like a large giant like Walmart would have bought them, and I think we would have had a lot of job losses in the area. I was the first elected official to call for a boycott of Market Basket, and that was a huge risk, not only to the Market Basket, but I took a risk, and I think there were some people that criticized me, but I couldn't believe that people started to stop shopping at Market Basket. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever been part of. And I think that when I decided to do this, I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I could have been routinely criticized, but I didn't care. I did what I thought was right. I wanted to save these jobs. I mean, Tewksbury is headquartered in Tewksbury, and I thought it was the right thing to do, and I'm proud of that. And it's the reason why that Market Basket is still here today, and that all the jobs are still local.
Okay. Barry, this next question goes to you. We have to start watching the clock. Barry, should the governor, the executive branch, and the legislature be held to the same standards of open meeting law and public records laws as municipal bodies are? Because as you know, they're exempt.
I think there's
all the conference committees, they're all exempt.
I think there's some merit to that, but I also am concerned about when people can't pull each other to the side and talk about things, and always be concerned about, should we have an open meeting or not. I think sometimes people grandstand in front of the TV camera when they're in the legislature, and it is helpful to pull people back aside and say, hey, let's find a way to work on this together. And sometimes you can be very heated with your discussion. So I think there's some merit to have an open meeting, but I'm concerned about if you do have full open meeting in the legislature and the governor, that some things won't get passed.
Well, just a quick follow-up, and Joe, you'll have your time. The state budget every year is hammered out in a conference committee, and then it goes to the governor. Why aren't the minutes and what happens in those conference committees open for all to see?
I think there's some merit to, at least for the minutes to be public. I think that should be, but I think there's also some upside to understanding that sometimes you have some pretty hard conversations, and these conversations get pretty heated, and you have to tell no to people. Like, you can't spend on everything. You can't be all things to all people, and sometimes those conversations can get pretty heated, and I think that's why sometimes you need to do it behind closed doors.
Joe.
I believe that they all should be out in the open. We should be able to see what's going on behind those curtains. The Wizard of Oz is working their magic. Everybody's going tit for tat, and I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, and we all know that's what goes on behind that curtain. That's why they're not public, and I think they should be public at least at least the minutes of those meetings, if they even keep them, should be made public so that the people are able to know. I'm held under the same open meeting laws as everybody else. It just amazes me that all.
At the Greater Lowell Tech.
At the Greater Lowell Tech, it just amazes me, the people that make the rules for me violate their own same level of control that they want to inflict on me, and they just go along and just say, I'll do what I want to, you do what I say. So I believe that it should be a public meeting, and why not? They're talking about your money.
Barry?
Well, once again, I think there's, if they want to have the minutes, I'm not opposed to that. But once again, I think it's about getting things done, working together, and making sure that, we have a fiscally responsible budget.
Okay. We're going to just veer off script a little bit here, and I'm going to allow each of you to ask a question of one another, as I did with the state representative candidates. So Barry, you can ask Joe a question, whatever you want to ask, and Joe, you can ask Barry a question. Then we'll wrap up with 2-minute closing statements.
So Joe, I have a tough one for you. So last Sunday night, there was the Patriots on in Game 2 of the Red Sox-Astros. Which one did you watch?
I actually, I'm a big baseball fan. I have to say, I watched the Red Sox, and I had my phone to give me updates on the Patriots game.
So your priority is the Red Sox, huh?
Yeah,
so I'll admit I'm
that's
a
why we
Patriots.
got to get out of here.
Yeah, I know. So I'll admit I watched the Patriots. So that was a tough one for Boston sports fan. We're so spoiled here.
Joe?
And Barry, I see you dress in different kinds of clothing every time I see you. What is your favorite way to dress?
Well, I got to talk to my boss, Mrs. F. She helps me out. So if
Not her favorite way, your favorite way. What do you feel comfortable in?
Listen. If I had my way, I'd never wear a suit. I like wearing jeans. I like when I have this black shirt and jeans. That's what I'm most comfortable with. And but the thing is, though, I tend to dress warmer because my kids are always playing hockey. So I'm in the rink. I'm out of the rink. So got to be all seasons. So.
I'll be
All right, gentlemen, you had your
Yeah.
chance. Barry, 2-minute closing statement.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the Lowell
welcome.
Sun and Chris and Amaris for having this debate. Joe, thank you for agreeing to this debate, and I think this is what it's about. I would respectfully ask the voters for your vote on November 6th. I believe I have the experience to go from day one. I'm someone that will be a relentless advocate for Andover, Lawrence, Tewksbury, and Dracut. There are specific things that I want to do as your state senator. One of the things is I truly believe in early education. I've seen the benefits of having my own kids, Ava, Ellen, Max, in preschool. And not only is this good to have our kids learning young, but this is really important for our workforce later on. I also want to make sure that we create a strong business environment for Massachusetts, and it starts with small businesses. It's too hard to run a small business here in Massachusetts. There's too much red tape, too expensive, and we have to understand that every large corporation was once a small business. I also want to make sure that we have a green future. Not only is it good for our wallets, it's good for our environment, and as I said before, it is important for our public safety. Because what happened with these gas explosions in Andover, in Lawrence, and North Andover can happen in Dracut, can happen in Tewksbury, and I will make darn sure that this does not happen again, because this has been tough. And I feel for those families that still don't have gas, that still have a tough time out there, these small businesses that can't open up. We got to make sure that never happens again. And the final thing I want to say is that I know the environment right now that they want to have all the Democrats being partisan, all the Republicans being partisan, and for us not to work together. That's not what I'm about. I'm about working together. And I'm very proud of some of the legislation I passed with people like Republican Bruce Tarr or Senator Bob Hedlund. To me, it's about doing the job. It's not about being partisan. It's not about criticizing people. It's not about being negative. It's about getting the job done. And if you give me the chance to be your state senator again, I will work day and night to make sure that I'm a relentless advocate, gets a job done, and make you very proud of a person that works with everyone, listens to everyone, and gets the job done. And lastly, before I close, I want to thank my wife and my family for allowing me to run for state senate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. Joe Espinola, Republican candidate for the 2nd Essex Middlesex District.
Sounds like Barry has a little Trump in him with that red tape with the small businesses. Just saying. I also agree in a lot of his closing statements that I've been on a roll my whole life. I've been in a union my whole adult life. I've been part of a union. And I often say that if I could be in the G party, which would be the gray party, right down the middle, I'm not crazy left, I'm not crazy right, I'm for what's right for the people in the district and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have a long road ahead of us. We have this opiate addiction thing that's going on. We have the gang issues starting to resurface again. And believe it or not, AIDS is coming back. It's like a new scourge. It's coming back. We have new problems. We have things that we need to take care of. I have this street smart from being a police officer. I grew up in a not-so-nice neighborhood where I happened to make some better choices than my brother, and I made it out, and he didn't, unfortunately. And we need to not have this happen to people's families anymore. Kids in the schools, I've been part of DARE. We need to say, as I said earlier, we're going to have Narcan for you if you overdose. No, we have to teach them not to be on drugs. It's going to kill you. And I said this at the Lowell Sun debate, or the editorial, that what we're doing right now as a society is we're enabling people to continue to do what they're doing. We're not doing anything for them. It's like they jumped out the window and we're throwing the net after them after they've already gone out the window. It's not saving them. We have to try to figure out a way that we can make these people whole. We talked about the technical education. I want to bring technical education into the traditional school system. Kids that aren't going to go to college, kids that have no absolute even want to go to college, I think we should bring them somehow into the technical schools. And I also believe that the technical schools can play a big part in helping people that are addicted and having a way to feel good about themselves and carry on. So I appreciate you, the Lowell Sun, my family, my friends that are over there, and I ask for everybody's vote on November 6th, and hitting the ground running does not make a difference. I'm a fast learner. So give me a chance and I won't let you down.
Thank you, Joe. Joe Espinola is a Republican candidate for the 2nd Essex and Middlesex District. Barry Feingold from Andover is the Democrat. I want to thank both of you for attending tonight. I want to thank the town of Drake for allowing us to use Harmony Hall, and I want to thank Drake Access Television, too, for televising tonight's 2 debates live. And be sure to get out and vote on November 6th, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good job, Joe.